ברשות רבי חסיד, דיין דונה, רבנים, פנסים, קהל קדוש. אבי רכב ישראל. When Eliyahu Navi passed away, his disciple Elisha said those words to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what many of us said when our beloved and revered Dayan Ehrentreu passed away. He was our champion in many ways, but mainly for the reason that he carried us all in our religious and personal lives. He cared for all. He helped all. He loved all his flock in so many countries of the world. He was instrumental in organizing and structuring all issues of personal status in our community for nearly 40 years. His practical guidance, always given with warmth, affection, and above all, impeccable and wide knowledge of the Torah, was vital to our community's development and order. His influence over world Jewry was unique. It was exercised with compassion, supreme knowledge, and elegance. Always supported by his exceptional Rabbanit, Leavdil ben Chaim, Chaim, she should be well and with us for 120 years. There were a couple always ready to do anything, and I mean anything, to help Klal Israel. You have all read of the extraordinary lengths the Dayan went to help even one Jewish soul. He fed a young girl whose life was in danger in hospital. He bathed children after beritot, which he did when the mother was nervous. He visited and cared for the sick. He traveled miles to improve Torah standards at great personal inconvenience. The number of times he came to Gibraltar, sometimes to be with us for a number of hours only, and went back the same day to guide us, can't be counted. The number of semachot and other less happy occasions he attended to emphasize with Klal Israel are immeasurable. I would have so many stories to tell of the Dayan's gadlot in helping others, that we could be here till tomorrow. One personal sweet story, Dayan was friendly with my parents, Alayhim Shalom. When Hilda and I got married, we were a young couple, not involved in anything of the Kalam. The Dayan walked over an hour and a half to grace and speak at our Shiva Berachot. Nothing was too much for him. The Dayan has a custom which has been followed by his illustrious successor and son-in-law, Leavdil ben Chaim, Dayan Duna, that every Friday night after Arvit, when young children came to wish him Shabbat Shalom, he would give them sweets. One of my grandchildren, who said Tefillah and was a member of the congregation in his Beit HaMidrash, did not like. As soon as the Dayan found out, he never failed to have a chocolate for him. If that is not greatness, to deal with that detail, I ask what it is. His greatness was shown even when he fell ill. The effect on visitors on the Dayan after he fell ill, he famine that cannot be explained normally. Hundreds, if not thousands of people came to visit him at the time. The unanimous opinion of all of us was that we all left uplifted. He wasn't able to speak, but his shining face portrayed such holiness, enthusiasm, love, and nobility that we all felt influenced and comforted from this giant who was everyone's father and grandfather. Our Chachamim tell us that when Mashiach comes, we will all say Kadosh, Kadosh in front of the Tzaddikim, as we say in front of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I have no doubt that our beloved Dayan will be amongst those Tzaddikim. We pray that Mashiach will come soon and we will have the zechut to see Dayan Ehrentreu Tzaddik Yivracha continuing his exceptional leadership to all of us. Finally, I would like to thank sincerely Dayan Duna and his Rabbanit for coming to be with us on this special day. We pray that the Dayan will be a Melit Yosher for all his family, our community, our small community which he loves so much, and for Klal Yisrael. תהיה נפשו סרורה בצרור החיים.
Thank you very much, Mr. Levy. Kadosh. Today we're making a tribute for a very great man, so great that we are not worthy of describing his sterling attributes and qualities. We have benefited over the last 38 years that I've been here from his support. He has given the community stability during very rough times. We can only thank him for his given the community, to contribute to his permanence, to his vitality. There's one outstanding midah that many years ago Rabbi Solomon on his Ehrentreu told me that he had an incredible love of humanity. Love of the success of his kollel in Batzalman was the love that he showed the Avrechim. Of course, every Rosh Kollel loves his Avrechim in such a special way. He loved each one of them, they really felt it. And he transformed them and helped them to grow in stature. And so to little Gibraltar, when he came here, he knew every single individual, and when he met someone, he would ask him, how is your back pain, and do you have the operation, and when he went to, and he knew every little detail of everybody's lives. That is so important to us because everyone wants to feel important and to give importance to each and every one of us. Now I would like to mention another midah, assessment of Paco Martin, because during the last 40 years, a lot of things have happened in Gibraltar. Ehrentreu set up a Shechita twice, and he was involved, of course, in conversions, matters of status, and many other burning issues in the community. And when he came to a group of people who wanted to produce kosher sherry, so he took it upon himself to give that sherry. And we went to Jerez together, and we examined the factory. And the one little man there, whom I worked with for many years after that, called Paco Martin, he was put in charge of me to make sure he did the right things. You know, supervision of wine is work, it's working with the wine, because no one's allowed to touch it, and no one's allowed to touch the wine. And he was a Jew, he loved Jewish people. He had books about General Dayan, the 6-Day War, all the wonderful, he called his children Bible names, like Ismael, a Jewish name. And he loved the Jews all that. He had a shooting range, and he invited me to bring the boys of Gibraltar to shoot. And somebody said to me, why don't we shoot each other? The father will come. So we came to the vintage, and we started early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock we were there. And Ehrentreu took off his language vehicle, he was dressed like like Dayan, and he was running around with his schleikers, with his braces. And the Bakum Martin told me, I was always wondering, what is the success of the Jewish people? What gives them the success of surviving so many years and to won the 6-Day War and Dayan? He gave a whole list of all the wonderful achievements of Jewish people. And now I understand. There's the Rizut. The alacrity of this man runs, that is the success of the Jewish people. Couldn't waste a minute, whether he was running around like, I would say like a younger man, but the young people were running like he was. One place to another to make sure that it was being done properly. That's the result, I think, really is the mark of the Jewish people. We read last week's parasha. Yesterday, we have to look after the mitzvah, and look after all the mitzvah. The mitzvah is like mitzvah. If you leave it too long, if you delay it, then it can become spoiled and no longer valid. It was not true. If you leave the mitzvah till tomorrow, it's still the mitzvah, it's still not the mitzvah. So the fashion says it's not like that. Because every moment of our life has to be dedicated to Torah mitzvah. And every moment of our life is allocated to different mitzvah. If a mitzvah comes our way, it means that moment of our life has to be dedicated, it's given for that mitzvah. If you don't do it, then that mitzvah has died. So maybe tomorrow we'll have another mitzvah, it's a different mitzvah. It's a different you the next day. That's not the same life. It's a life one day later. So really the mitzvah has been spoiled forever. We'll never be able to recover the moments he missed doing that mitzvah. The Maharal explains that the Olam Haba is above time. Time is a human experience, if you like. We have to get through time in order to be able to achieve things that God was planned. And as long as you're doing the mitzvah quickly, without any hesitation, then the mitzvah belongs. It's almost a timeless mitzvah. Of course, it takes time because of the world when there is time. But there's no experience, and no loss, and no wasted time. The moment you stop to take a selfie, in that moment you introduce the element of time and you bring the mitzvah. So you've done the mitzvah, you know, set, but you lost the value of the mitzvah. There's like to extend this like at a different level. The Nefesh HaChaim writes that Zechah mitzvah mitzvah, tell us a big reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. But there is no reward of a mitzvah in this world. The reward of a mitzvah is the world to come. So Zechah mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. That mitzvah itself must be in the world to come, in the Olam Haba. It can't be a mitzvah on earth. That's going to be a reward. The reward has to be in the Olam Haba. So it explains that whatever we do in mitzvah, we become surrounded by a kedusha, which is why we say Hashem Kedusha Mitzvotav. The mitzvah brings kedusha around us. We are somewhat elevated, transported onto the level of the Olam Haba, and then the mitzvah that we do here on earth is actually mitzvah done, performed in Olam Haba. But if we spoil it, if we introduce the element of time, which is something relevant to Olam Haba, then we cannot get the Zechah. The Zechah has to be something which is done, the mitzvah done in Olam Haba, with all the parameters of the Olam Haba. The moment the time element comes in, I took a break for 5 minutes, whatever it was, and that spoils the mitzvah, no longer belongs to Olam Haba. The cloud of kedusha dissipates, and we're left doing our mitzvah in Olam Haba. So Bakum Martin, he said, I always wondered what the success of the Jewish people was based on, how they survived all these years. Ehrentreu is the he was a survivor, all survivors. He watched, as a young boy, he watched his father's synagogue, his father was a Rav, burned to the ground by the Nazis, and he survived to tell the story, to tell us a story. The survival depends on commitment to Torah and Mitzvah. This is what he demonstrated, that even a simple boy could understand. That's the result, the dedication that Dayan had. Before we this study was doing the Shirah, producing the Gusha wine, that is the secret of our success. This is what we have to remember wherever we go, whatever we do. We are not walking in Olam Hazeh, walking in Olam Haba. There is no such thing as free time, spare time in Judaism. We're going walking for health, or we're going to be inspired by a beautiful view of the sunset, whatever it is. We're always doing things, the Shem Shemayim, Kadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvot, Olam Mitzvot. We're walking in a different place, we're walking in Olam Hazeh, we're walking in the Olam Haba. And always have to remember. As long as we walk in the Olam Haba, then we can have the Schar and the Mitzvah in the Olam Haba. And here we are now to remember, to pay tribute to this very great man, do many great things around the world, and it is always a source of wonder to meet many of us. And we're always busy schedule, and the whole of London there are many kibbutz, many congregations, and a synagogue, and others who are interested audience and invited to speak. And with all that, if you come to Gibraltar, turn off all the worries and all the other considerations you have to devote himself whole single-minded to the issues at hand in Gibraltar. His life was a wonderful life. It was an exemplary life, an honourable life. The name Ehrentreu means honourable, and he certainly exemplified that midah, being honourable. And his children, the family also, we had lots of contact with them, incredibly honourable people. It's a word we don't normally use today. It's not very common. People don't have honour. It's not a very common, it's not a very popular commodity. Chanoch should inspire us all to take upon ourselves, to adopt his minhagim Torah, his good character traits, to be able to emulate him, to devote our lives like he devoted his life, to Israel, the Jewish people, whether it's internationally, whether it's just locally, or within our family, to be chazak, to strengthen the pillars of Judaism, to becoming Mashiach of Yerushalayim, before actually not all those who need it, long life to the elders of it, and we should take the L'chaim L'chaim, and to Hashem, we should be Zochet ourselves, our lives, to emulate and to be the greatest version of what we can be.
Rishut, Rabbi Chassid, Rishut, President Chaim Bibi. First of all, thank you for your warm words. Bishus, the Parnesim, all the esteemed Parnesim of the Kehilas here. The Gemara tells us that Chacham Shemet, when a Chacham passes away, Hakol Kareivo, everybody is considered their family. Whenever Talmid Chacham, a great person passes away, all are considered his relations. Here in Gibraltar, it is definite that Hakol Kareivo, that everybody can be considered a relation of my late father-in-law, Hagon, Reb Chanoch, ben Reb Yisrael, Ehrentreu, Zeichat Tzadik Livracha. I can tell you on a personal level, whenever we would choose a date, trying to choose a date for family simcha, we had to always consult with the Dayan, consult with their father-in-law. They would not clash with any planned visit to Gibraltar. That came first. The Dayan would often say to us, when we'd say, but maybe we can still fit it in, but the Gibraltar Kehillah is part of our family. Only this past week, when sorting out some of the files of the Dayan, I came across a short personal biography that the Dayan wrote some 37 years ago at the request of the royal family. It was when he was invited, when the Dayan and the Rebbetzin were invited by Her Majesty to stay in Windsor Castle. So I wanted a resume, a bit of a biography. And I found the note that the Dayan wrote out, and he sent there. And he wrote the following, I quote, "Senior Judge of the Court of the Chief Rabbi of London, pastoral visits to communities throughout Great Britain and Gibraltar, full stop." So out of all the places, and as we heard Hespedim so far, visiting right across the globe and going all over the place, no, it's only written the communities throughout Great Britain and Gibraltar. So it shows the closeness that he felt. He had really a special affinity, a love and a closeness to this wonderful community. It is definitely appropriate to say, and I started off, that everyone here at this distinguished gathering who've come to pay respect and tribute to the memory of such an Adam Gadol are all part of the Dayan's family. Although it is some 10 weeks since his departure, the feelings of grief and sorrow and emotional pain are still very deeply felt. When the great Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Shach, who was the Yeshiva Bonovich by Rosh Yeshiva, Zeichat Tzadik Livracha, passed away, Rabbi Leib Steinemann gave a Hespedim. And at the time he said that there's a great responsibility, quoted Gemaras, a great responsibility on those who eulogize any great giants. We must be very careful with one's words. And therefore he said, it should Chas v'Shalom not be a waste of time in a eulogy. Only one should say words that will be beneficial for all those present and bring about a Kavod Shemai. And with this in mind, then I'd like to share something that Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in his very renowned Sefer Yaros Devash writes, that when a great person passes away, he says, Ish Tzadik Shayam Alubosh Umutar B'midot Rabot Ukama Malot Tavot. When a great person who was clothed and crowned with many positive characteristics, traits, and many great attributes, B'moisa Ehrentreu, when he passes away, Kol Masav Umidoisov Ukidyonim Mufgoim. At a time when a great person passes away, who had so many different attributes in life, none of us can take upon themselves to emulate all his ways. But it says in Yonis and Ivashitz that at that time of the passing of such a great person, there is special heavenly help, Siyata Deshmaya, that everybody can take on in some small measure, some of those characteristics of the great person who passed. There is a special Siyata Deshmaya that everybody can take on. They are hefka for everybody to be zoika in it, and that will be both a bracha for the people who take it on and a big ilul shama for the niftar. So the idea of coming together, speaking in this wonderful gala, is not that we should just say stories about the greatness, but that we should all be elevated in some dimension, in some way, that we should take on in some small measure any point that we feel we can, and that will be as a good for everybody here this evening. Every action of my late father-in-law, the Dayan, was governed by Torah. Was governed by what is the will of the Rebbeinu Shalom, what is the will of Hashem. His midas, his way of life, was somewhat of a paradox. On the one hand, he was a person who was unyielding. He was strong, uncompromising, not giving in to any pressure. And yet, he was the most compassionate person, soft and empathizing with every individual from all walks of life. Really a contradiction. But it was no contradiction, because he was only able to encompass these extremes because every action of his was based on what does Hashem want me to do at this moment and time. And through that, he looked at every situation in its own right, in a totally right, and then that is what it was based. And I saw that his strength, his uncompromising strength. Let me share with you an article or two maybe that was written in the so-called Jewish press and also in some of the national press in 1980, in December 1980. Unfortunately, one of the reporters got hold of a private note that was sent around to various schools and institutions, and obviously blew it up well and proper. I brought with me a copy of the article, and I'll just read out some of it. The headline was, "These Jews are no longer Jewish," says Beth. And this was shortly after he took up the position in Manchester, and obviously it was a bit of rather a risky business at the time, but this is what it says. It says, the Hespedim, in a confidential circular, sent out to all ministers and demanded they examine the membership records of their synagogues and bring any cases of conversion to their attention. Anyone whose conversion would not satisfy the London-based standards shall not be permitted to enjoy any benefits of the shul membership, rights associated, whether it is with milas, with aliyah, with burial, etc. And can you imagine what a rumpus that caused? And then he further went on in that confidential note, which became so public, that he'll be in contact with all the various institutions, whether they followed this up, and please report. Which, obviously, in today's society, where everybody's equal but they're not equal, it had a very negative effect. And we would imagine when the Dayan came home that evening after a hard day in the Hespedim, and that he'd be sad or he'd be tensed up. Family was family. Because it didn't affect him, because he knew what he was doing was right. So he wasn't nervous. His job was maybe at risk. That didn't matter. because uncompromising, what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants and what is correct, that I will do. And nothing would budge him. The same happened in 1982 when the Pope was a papal visit coming to Manchester at the time, and there was a delegation of all different religions going to meet, and there was a delegation of the Jewish community, which the Dayan, Zekat Tzadik Livracha, was meant to be part of that delegation. And he agreed to be a part. It's got to show one's respect. Yet, he heard, he was informed that some of the conservative rabbis will also be part of that delegation. And you know what the Dayan said? If they are part of the delegation, I am not attending. And no, none of the Orthodox should attend. And there we had headlines saying, Dayan in papal visit storm. And bold print it said, a bigot like Ehrentreu, a bigot like Ian Paisley, for those who know about this. That is what the papers were saying. And once again, that didn't bother him. Because if that is right, I mean, they're not Rabbonim, and they don't represent the Jewish community, we won't go with that delegation, so may it be. And we would think a person of such hard, we may say hard traits of character, wouldn't be that compassionate. And yet the very same Dayan, the very same person, was always there. That great Baal Chesed, yes, I know that story which was mentioned here earlier this evening, which I said at the time of the funeral with this young girl, who he took upon himself between the passing of the Dayan and my speaking at the funeral. I did phone up, I know exactly who it is. This person is living in her soul, she's married already with grandchildren, I stated whether we are allowed to mention the story, and she gave me permission. I won't repeat it, but the Messiah established for everybody to do a chesed. He was on a flight some 17 years ago. He was taking a flight to Eretz Yisrael, an hour flight. He comes on the flight, sitting there in his seat, and there he sees a young Hasidic person taking the lady onto the plane, who he could see was definitely very unwell, shaking all over, couldn't control the movements of her body, and the pilot and one of the stewards were saying, we don't think we can take this person on the plane, telling me, because they don't know whether she'll manage the flight. And there was a whole talk backwards and forwards. I'm sure that everybody's looking at it with some compassion. But there, I don't know how many passengers fit on a plane, but a good 200 people sitting there. Eventually, this lady sat down next to the person looking after him. Further seat further away was another person there, another Hasidic person. So all passengers on the plane, the Dayan himself got up and went up to this Hasidic person. Who is this lady? So he said, oh, it's really my wife, and that's my son. She's not well, but we have a simcha Eretz Yisrael, and we would like to take her along. And I know it's been a struggle, it was an embarrassing struggle. So the Dayan asked for his name. The Dayan said, and then what did the Dayan do? 1.5 weeks later, this wasn't a published story because it happened to be that some years later I heard it directly from the person involved. The Dayan went out 1.5 weeks later, when this person returned from Eretz Yisrael, he finds through his door an envelope of £10,000. With the Dayan then called him and said, I felt that you haven't got enough medical help, you haven't got the right carers for it, and I feel very much that this person should be cared for, and that is what the Dayan did. Not that the Dayan had £10,000 to give, but where he saw was necessary. Now, if I would have seen it, maybe I would have phoned up some people of Stamford Hill where this person lived, and they should look after it. But it's got nothing to do with the Dayan. He had plenty on his own plate. What did he have to do that for? But that was the Dayan, that compassionate, somebody who empathized, somebody who felt other people's pain and did for it, worked for it. And every now and then he would call brought this person in, are you sure he's running enough help? And look after this person. A whole plane load of people, one person felt like it. Yes, that same uncompromising person, but felt for somebody else. And I can testify that it wasn't easy. The Dayan did raise funds. You know, it wasn't easy. At times, he asked me to make appointments for him, that I should come along with him. He said, I've used up all my people, I can't go again. Perhaps he said to me, he said, perhaps you've got some connections. And can you make, I made an appointment or two. And I went along with the Dayan. And we came to one person, very wealthy person, Judith, and obviously it was a very important cause, again, helping someone. Dayan asked me to come with him. I made the appointment. This person, I put forward the story, but I would say the response wasn't great. I won't go into details, but the response wasn't great. So you think that the Dayan was upset or annoyed? He said, she turned to me and said, "Hey, David, we did our Shabbos. We did what we were meant to do. All I've learned from this is that we won't go there again." But he didn't, no complaint, not one word of complaint. And on the contrary, this very same person met him 2 weeks later in the street. I was there. And he said, I'm making a simcha, would you please come and honour us with your presence at the simcha? So you think, well, you say, I can't really manage whatever. No problem, I'll be there. Those were the characteristics of the Dayan. It's really, thinking about it and looking back, no complaints against anyone. Everybody is kosher. Everybody is something. And what the Rebbeinu Shalom runs the world, it's not me who runs the world, it's the Rebbeinu Shalom who runs the world. And as it says in Rabbeinu Yonah, yes, in Shari Tshuva, he writes, Ugemilas kasodim bein begufay b'mayne. Person is obligated, if I to say it into English, to exert effort in seeking the good of people and to constantly be preoccupied with the improving standards of his family's well-being. And it continues Rabbeinu Yonah, this is one of the most important mitzvahs among the fundamental requirements placed upon every person. We don't, unfortunately, myself, we can't always do that. It's feeling so important. But that is how the Dayan lived. The Dayan answered the most complex questions. I mean, I'm sure this community knows it well and proper. Whether it was in ishut, in marriage, whether it was gayus, yichus, whatever it may be. Yet,